Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hiss and Tell. I am your host, Christina Wilson, cat behaviorist. So, cats are constantly communicating with us, and the problem is that we can be really bad at listening. So, in this episode, I'm joined by Serenella de Ingeo to talk about the science of feline communication, why people struggle to recognize stress in cats, and how our cats may actually understand our emotions better than we understand theirs. We also get into cat body language, petting consent, multi-cat households, and one of the most fascinating studies that I have ever read involving cats and their nostril preference. All right, here we go. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hiss and Tell. I'm your host, Christina Wilson, and with me today is Serenella D'Ingeo, a professor of animal physiology and behavior at the University of Bari in Italy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that I said your name sort of right this time.
You were great.
It's only my 500th try. So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, what drew you into studying animal behavior and communication?
Well, actually, I started my research career in 2014,
Mm-hmm.
just after my graduation. And I've always been interested in animal behavior. Actually, it was kind of my passion till I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel very lucky to have this kind of work. And so I've collaborated with my research team on studies on animal behavior and in particular about animal living in street contact with humans.
Mm-hmm.
So mainly dogs and recently also cats
Mm-hmm.
and donkey and horses. And we tried to have a look on communication and human animal interactions with a particular focus on also physiological responses to communicative signals. So it can include hormonal levels, but also cardiac and brain activity.
Cool. So, what a stupid response. Cool. Doing great today. So, I wanted to talk specifically about two of your studies that involve cats. So, a lot of people still think of cats as kind of hard to read or aloof. What does the science, in your opinion, say about that?
Well, it's not that far from the reality, actually. In fact, I want to say that with my research team, and includes also Professor Paranta and Professor Siniskalki, we started to have a look on cat behavior and their relationship with humans in particular, because we had experience in human-animal interaction from a behavioral point of view, meaning that we also have a service in our university regarding cat behavioral veterinary service, actually. Yes.
Nice.
And so we had lots of cases of cats that had troubles in actually their living environment with
Right.
humans and also other cats that live with them in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so we understood from our direct experience that there is something that is still missing in communication from human to cats,
Right.
and maybe vice versa.
Yeah.
And so we started to deeply have a look on this, especially because we don't have, at least till now, a very huge piece of literature on this. So on the ability of human to read cats and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that actually it is kind of related also to a specific feature of the biology of cats, meaning that in particular, we have a different history of domestication of cats
Right.
in respect with dogs, of course. Have lived very close to us
Mm-hmm.
from thousands of years, between 20, 40,000 of years. Instead, the cats are starting to live close to us from a shorter period. So it is estimated around 9,000 years. So we are less trained, or if we
Yeah.
can say, from evolution to read cats. And on the other side, we also have to say that cats, differently to other animals that live in social group, are facultative social animals. So they can live in social group if they have a kind of individual predisposition to live close to other cats, but also it really depends on the amount of resources that are available. If we consider that they can live or not live in social group, it really depends on several factors, and the possibility to interact also develop the kind of communication that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, if we compare other social animals that live close to us, like dogs or horses, they developed more subtle emotional communication than cats that
Right.
sometimes have just defensive or aggressive response just to, you know, have a kind of very short interaction when they meet at the very perimeter of the area where they live.
Right. Do you think the average layperson would be better at reading a horse's signals then than a cat's communication signals?
Well, that's
And not like a
I won't
horse
say that. No,
person, but like
I
a
won't say
regular
that.
person. Yeah. Yeah.
I won't. Yeah,
It
yeah.
just makes me curious about that because I know with dogs we have at least self-selected, or in breeding dogs in because we've had this
Yeah.
long relationship with them, we've also self-selected dogs that are most like us and that we can understand the most and sort of helped breed them throughout the years so that we've kind of arrived at the type of dog that we have now that we can easily communicate with or read. And it's a little different with cats, but I wonder, not to make this a horse podcast, but now that you brought horses and donkeys into it, I'm also curious about, I guess, have we done the same with horses in your experience? Like, where do they fall in the spectrum?
Well, I won't say that generally we are more able to read horses than
Yeah.
cats.
Okay.
Yeah. But especially because actually they don't live very close to us in our
Right. Yeah.
apartments.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. What? I have so many horses in my apartment. What are
But
you
I
talking
know
about?
people that had experience with goat in their house. So, never know.
I mean, that would certainly, goats love to chew at everything. I don't know how you'd have furniture left. It's
I don't
interesting.
know. People sometimes.
So, in your study, you found that people were only slightly better than chance at recognizing whether a cat was relaxed or tense or fearful. Was that surprising to you? What did you think about the results of the study?
Yeah, in fact, as I was saying just before, I was not really surprised.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was kind of confirmation, if I can say like this, because as I told you, we had different cases reporting really severe
Right.
cases of cats having very deep consequences of chronic stress
Yes.
related to the fact that their management is not well regulated by humans. That is the most difficult part, because of course, if we, for instance, here in Italy, we have this kind of tradition of hosting cats only in our apartment. So
Hmm.
it's not really have cats that can also access to open spaces. So of course their life is completely dependent on human. And so sometimes if we don't have the ability to read stress signals, we condition their lives really strongly.
Yeah.
So yes, in fact, it did not surprise
Yeah.
me. I want to say.
That's too bad, but I get it.
Yeah, that's bad. In a
Yeah.
way, it's, give a scientific proof is a first step to try to understand what we can do to improve and
Yes.
to make their life be better than
Exactly.
it is. Yes.
Exactly. So I think one of the more interesting findings that came out of that was that the observer characteristics mattered more than the cat's behavior itself. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So we found actually in our super recent study that people that identified as female yeah, are more able to detect stress in cats.
Mhm.
And also, people that own a cat in their life, at least one, are more able to.
Mhm.
And we found also a very slight difference regarding to the age. So
Right.
younger people seem to be more able that older people. And well, regarding the gender, it has to be deepened because there are lots of study also on other species, also wild species, that show that females and women in general are more able, but we don't have data in this work related to the sex, so we cannot any clear conclusion about the evolutionary process that could push in a way
Right.
women to detect more easily the emotional signals.
Hmm.
Instead, it is more clear the result about the experience. So cat ownership versus cat who who didn't have
Yeah, sure.
a cat, which means that experience has a really profound effect. So living and observing cats and also how they interact and what are their reaction to our action have an effect on how we can interpret their behavior, their
Right.
emotional signals.
Yeah.
And then, yes, also it is strictly connected, I think, also to the age difference because
Hmm.
younger people are, now there is a kind of trend on social media on cat videos. So
Yeah.
I think it could be really related to
Yeah,
this. So
that's
people
true.
are really trained to look at cats and at a point start to, it has a kind of a real effect in their life. So start to be more and more trained and more able maybe to interpret and detect their emotional signals.
How much of that drop off, though, also has to do with the drop off that comes with age, with visual acuity and
For sure.
other things? Because cats, the signals are so small, right? Like they're so tiny that, especially as, we're all aging. So it's not like as an aging person, we're all aging.
Well, no.
But,
Don't
my eyes are, they get worse. And now I have to have reading glasses and other things. And so I just think, especially if you're an older person and you're perhaps fighting against these changes and so you don't want to adjust your glasses or whatever that you have to do, maybe that is playing a part. Who knows? But I know that things
yeah,
things
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
cats are
yeah.
so minute that
Yes,
certainly
yeah.
that could play a part as well.
Yeah, 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 I totally agree with you. And we also have to consider that there is a kind of cognitive impairment with age. And
Yes.
it is also stated for the interpretation of human signals too.
Yeah.
So old people may have also the kind of this impairment in emotional communication with conspecific, so other humans too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wonder if older people who do have cats, like I love to drill down into data to look at like absolutely pointless things like this, but to look at like older people who do have cats to see if they've just fixated on their judgments and they're kind of like, this is what I think cats who are stressed looks like. And this, they will not change their mind. So they're like very fixed into an idea because they're older and sort of inflexible. And if that plays a role, but again, that's just me,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know,
Yeah, it could be.
wanting to look at things that are not what your study was looking at all.
At the moment, but in the future,
Yeah.
it will be super interesting. Yes, yes, absolutely.
So what do you think the real world consequences, obviously, that you've seen in your clinic of people missing these kinds of early stress signals in cats are? And also, what are the stress signals that you were looking at in the study?
Regarding the second question, so
Hmm.
which were the signals, we had a look on the entire body language. So we had a specific look and the facial expressions, so
Hmm.
related to the changes in the eyes, in the mouth, in the ears position, together with the changes in body position and also tail position. This is because actually when we interpret animal behavior in general and we want to investigate it, our ability actually, I think it's really important to have, like a really broad look at
Sure.
the entire visual communication. And we focus for the moment, and at least for this study, only on visual communication because actually it is the very first signal, very first channel that they use to communicate their emotions,
Hmm.
which is then enriched also with the vocalization, but when emotions gets more intense. So we wanted to really have a look on this first step of communicating emotion to understand if we are able to detect the very first signals and
Right.
of course, also in a way have a kind of action to modify the situation that causes the stress.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very important, in fact, I think, to understand if we are able or not, because we have a very, very deep influence on cat living condition.
Right.
They are most of the time totally dependent on us, and so we have also this responsibility, I think, to make their life be the better.
We absolutely do. You're totally right. So, in your view, what are the most dangerous misconceptions that people have about cat body language? Like, and do you
Yeah.
think the gap in understanding contributes to problems?
I think, from my experience, that the most misinterpreted signal, well, not just one, but
Right.
a group of, is related to the moment in which we pet cats.
Mm-hmm.
So, generally, people start petting cats, and until the cat remain motionless, regardless of all the facial expression, we believe that cats enjoy this.
Right.
But instead could be only related to kind of acceptance and not
Mm-hmm.
really, like be a feeling of being really involved and enjoy
Right.
this. For instance, we could detect how they perceive this interaction, this physical interaction, from the body posture, if it
Mm-hmm.
is, really crouched or really relaxed, so no tension in the muscles, but also the position of the ears, also the eyes, if they are super soft, or we can detect the changes in diameter of pupils diameters,
Mm-hmm.
which, could explain the activation of the cat. And so the cat is starting to be really excited, not
Right.
very in a positive way, or the tail movement. If there is tail movement, the cat generally is not super confident.
Right.
Yes, I think this is what I generally see, but it refers actually not only to cats, unfortunately, but generally to all the pets in general. Sometimes we just are super focused on the benefit of petting our animals, but we need to also have a look on the other side if they enjoy too. I'm
I
so critical. I'm sorry.
you're not critical at all. I think this is totally right, and I have to say, for all the cases that I get of human directed cat aggression, there's so many of bitey cats, and
Yeah.
so many of them are coming from patting aggression. And the biggest tool that I think that people can do if they have this at home and they don't quite understand what their cat signals are, is to use their phone and just record their cat when they're patting them, and their cat will be telling them
Yeah.
they don't there's a moment when they've had enough, right? Sometimes one of our cats just gave us like a side eye. She'd just be like, that's it, and if we didn't recognize that, she thought she had given us a very clear signal that she was done. And if we didn't see that little eye movement, she'd give us a slap. And
Yeah.
I think it can be so helpful for pet parents to video their cats and then be able to slow that down and look and see, what was that signal that my cat gave me that I probably didn't pick up on, whether it was a lip lick or it was an eye movement or an ear movement or a specific tail movement, so that in the future, while they're petting their cats, they can see, oh, there's a signal. I'm going to stop
Yeah.
now so I don't get slapped or bitten or any of these issues that can often lead to relinquishment or, vet visits and medication, other things like that that aren't necessary.
Yeah. You're right. Absolutely. Could be a very, very effective strategy, I think,
Yeah,
to
because
train ourselves, in fact.
yeah, I think that's what's needed, because I think almost all the time the cat thinks it's telling you. Like, that they're like, but I've said, but it's just, they're so minute. There's such tiny
Yes.
signals for us as people that it can be very hard to pick up unless we're looking.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also have some kind of guidelines to help us to understand what we have to look at.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Very, very true. So on that token, if you could teach people to look at one thing first when they were looking to assess their cat, what would it be?
look at the eyes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is the very, very first change that we can detect. Is super, super clear, I think, from the pupil diameters.
Mm-hmm.
When it changes, it means, I mean, becomes bigger. It means that cat is started to be reactive. So is ready to react to all the threats that are in the environment. So it
Mm-hmm.
means that it started to be not really comfortable in that situation. Of course, there are other conditions that can cause these changes that are related to lights. If it is
Right.
really, really dark, of course, we don't have to be worried about this because they have
Yeah.
to just have the possibility to look at the environment. But, and if they are super excited, but in a very positive way, we can detect it too. But this is the very, very, very first sign of stress that we can detect, and it's quite easy
Mm-hmm.
to detect it.
And do you think that I guess for most people at home, it's not going to be, I always think that looking in a cat's eyes is so aggressive, but I guess for most people, if they're just quickly glancing a cat in the
Yes,
face, it's
yes.
not
Okay, don't
aggressive.
scare your cat.
Yeah. I don't want people
Just
being
have a
like,
quick look. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is a very, very strong,
yeah,
strong, strong
yeah.
trick. Just have a quick
A
look.
quick look. Don't take a flashlight and go,
Yes. No, otherwise, people.
yeah, exactly. But I think we've got to maybe spell it out a little bit because people might be like, okay, I'm going to go really go look.
Oh,
And
no, no,
yeah,
no. You have to
yeah,
specify. You're right.
yes, yeah. Just a quick glance and not let,
Yes.
no staring contest with your cat because that's very rude in cat language. Yeah,
Sure. They will feel embarrassed with me.
yeah. Don't embarrass your cat. That's so rude.
Yeah.
That would be a funny list to make of like things you could do that would embarrass your cat, and definitely staring them in the face is one of them.
Yeah.
So your research shows that cats can recognize human emotional signals. What does that tell us about the cat and human bond?
Well, it means that cats are potentially more attuned than us to our emotional signals in general.
Mm-hmm.
And in our previous studies, we presented the emotional stimulus that are expressed by human facial expressions
Right.
together with our vocalization. So it means, for example, we presented happy faces, so
Mm-hmm.
person smiling with the sound of laughing, and similarly, people that show that is anger with a growl vocalization, so quite intense.
Yeah.
And we found that they are able to match this sound. So we presented the voices with the two faces, one anger face and a happy face. And we
Mm-hmm.
saw that they look longer to the matching
Matching
face.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, and it means that they know our emotion. They have a mental representation of our emotion, and so they could correctly match the sound with the face. Actually, also we found that they respond efficiently to the meaning of the emotional content of these signals, and
Mm-hmm.
so they appeared more stressed when the voice of angry human is reproduced, and so they correctly match with also the face of
Right.
yes, of angry human. And so it shows both that they have a mental representation of our emotion, and they also respond properly to the content of the emotion. So it's very important because it means that they understand how we feel,
Mm-hmm.
and which are also the consequences
Yeah. Yeah.
of our emotions. So if we are happy, of course, they can feel more relaxed. If we are angry, they adjust their behavior and they prepare to escape, for instance.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's very important because it means that they communicate efficiently with us.
It's a thought about the fact that they're trapped in the house with us for most people who just have indoor only cats, and I think it highlights the importance of regulating our own emotions so that we're not trapping these nice little guys in our house with like angry and upset emotions all the time. especially if they're so attuned to them that that's going to affect them and it's going to affect their stress level. And so I think especially if you have very stressed out cats, that's often a question that I ask, when I'm meeting with clients, and if clients have especially stressed or fearful cats, is also what's going on in your home and what's going on with you as a
Sure,
person,
sure,
because
sure.
it is such a trickle down
Yeah.
to the cats.
And it's also super complicated to intervene in these cases because they are also our own dynamics from human to other human. So
Right.
cats perceive. It is important to know that cats perceive it.
Yes.
So in a way, we have also to consider that it has consequences also on them.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the study, there was no significant difference in accuracy between relaxed, tense, and fearful states. Why is that important?
Well, still, because it really means that people don't have a clear representation on the signals that are expressed in a relaxed state and
Mm-hmm.
differentiate them from the stress
Right.
ones. So means actually that we are not so able as cats are indeed in detecting their emotional states with all the consequences, of course, in our daily interaction and then generally in their life.
Right. Did you have any thoughts about people who live in multi-cat households and how misreading these stress signals might contribute to social tension and redirected aggression in a
Sure,
multi-cat
sure,
household?
sure, sure. Then it's even more complicated, I think, also because then there are several layers, if we can say. So there is the first one, which is related to the interactions between cats.
Mm-hmm.
So with their own communication, and that sometimes we miss.
Right.
Also, there is another important point that we observe during our clinical activity, which is related to the very first, for example, very first period in which a new cat is introduced in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we are super scared about all the consequences that this could produce, and we intervene in communication
Mm-hmm.
between interactions between our subject, so the new one, and the old one, which is already living in the house. And so sometimes we complicate the finding of the equilibrium between the cats.
Right.
Of course, there is also the problem of space because we remember that they are facultatively social animals. So some
Mm-hmm.
cats may not like to live with another cat.
Right.
They need to have, like bigger spaces. Sometimes these complicate even more the situation. We generally give this advice to people when they adopt a new cat,
Mm-hmm.
which is please let your cat interact freely. Don't worry if they express uh, aggressive behavior. Of course, they don't have to be injured, but don't worry. It's normal. They have to find their own equilibrium. So please let them adapt in this new environment, which is super important. Sometimes we are too scared. We are not so fast in detecting the problems, and we
Mm-hmm.
intervene and we create even a worse problem, I
Right.
think.
So are there early warning signs, though, that people should look for before something escalates? Or do you think that people should just be more hands off?
Still in the multi-cat, you mean
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
multi-cat house? Well, I think that it is the case to intervene just when one subject express, for instance, a very fixed position in the space so it's fixed in stuck in a way
Mm-hmm.
in a position with the weight forward, so toward the other cat, stare the other cat and start to move the tail.
Right.
In that case, I would be not worried to intervene, but start to have a look more deeply and intervene if just start the fight. But I won't intervene before.
Yeah. So I wanted to move on to talk about the second study about the asymmetrical nostril use
Okay,
study in cats.
sure.
Can you tell us a brief overview of that study and
Yeah.
what your findings were?
Yes, so we wanted to explore the olfactory communication, again, about a specific focus on emotional communication.
Hmm.
Because, of course, for us as humans, it's easier to investigate, first of all, the visual and the auditory communication, but we don't have to forget that there is the olfactory communication, which is out of our control, of course,
Right.
but is super important when we talk about emotions, because we found that there is this channel too, and influence other individual behavior and emotional state during the interactions. So we wanted to have a look at this specifically. So we presented emotional stimuli that we took from human sweat in different emotional conditions, and we presented them to dogs. Well, also to dogs.
Yeah.
We did it before to dogs
Yeah.
and also to cats in the second step. And so we studied their behavioral response, but also we use as a parameter their lateralized behavior,
Uh-huh.
which means the use of one nostril, specific nostril, to investigate a stimulus. We have a kind of, well, yes, long experience, we can
Yeah.
say, on this, because we have a field of research on lateralization in domestic animals. And it's very important to consider also this parameter, because it gives us a well, not direct, indirect access to the brain processing of a stimulus.
Uh-huh.
So it means that, for instance, if we consider the use of a nostril, if we see that one animal, a domestic animal, use one nostril, or prefer to use one nostril, to say it better, investigate one stimulus, it means that one of the two hemisphere on the same side, so right nostril, right hemisphere, is involved in processing that stimulus.
Uh-huh.
And we know that the two brain hemispheres have different specialization for emotional functioning. So we can derive information from these to understand how they feel. So if they preferentially use the right nostril, we know that they are attuned to that stimulus, they are ready to react, and they can interpret this stimulus as a threat. On the contrary, if we see that they prefer to use the left one, it means that the left hemisphere is on in that moment as a dominant activity.
Uh-huh.
We could derive information on the fact that actually they are processing it as something that is known, that is potentially positive or socially relevant in a positive way. So we use this kind of parameter because, in fact, gives a lot of information on the physiological processing of stimuli.
It's so wild. That's not something I would have ever thought about. Does it have any ties to handedness? Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, it's the same. Actually, we are talking now about sensory processing. So,
right.
nostril, it is also the same for eyes and also ears. And
Uh-huh.
for eyes and ears, we also generally use a kind of a methodology that help us to detect the preference in use one ear or one eye. So we present stimuli on the two parts, and we
Uh-huh.
see how they turn the head. So
Right.
which ear or which eye they use. And it is related to the sensory domain. But we also have evidence on motor lateralization. So use a one paw, for instance, to
Right.
manipulate objects. And so we know in this case, one hand corresponds to the use of the contralateral hemisphere, so on the other side.
So what did you find about cats that when they were using the left versus right nostril when they were exposed to the different stimuli?
Actually, we found that they generally prefer to use the right nostril, so the right hemisphere is on in that moment for processing the stimulus when they are more stressed. So we confirmed that also in cats, the right hemisphere is involved in processing stress stimulus, especially if these stimuli are related to, well, actually, as a stress content. It means that they are collected during a fearful situation for the human,
Uh-huh.
but also, which is kind of interesting, during physical stress. So we actually, we were super bad. We asked the human to run 15 minutes. And so we collected the sweat, and we collected this sample to detect the stress, which is not emotional, but physical.
Right.
And they reacted to this in a similar way.
So what did you use then for the other stimulus?
So we, first of all, try to create the emotional conditions in
Right.
humans. So we presented humans to two videos, one that evoked happiness and another one that evoked fear. And we collected soon after their sweat.
Okay.
With samples, with the swabs. Then we also wanted to collect another sample related to physical stress. So we asked them to run 15 minutes.
Got it.
And then we also had a neutral sample that worked as a control for us. Then all these samples, this web that were impregnated with the sweat of humans, were presented to cats. So the cats just had the swab with the odors. And we detected their reaction. So their behavioral reaction, their nostril use. Absolutely.
So that tells us that cats are more likely to use one nostril when something is threatening or novel or positive. Can we see examples of this in our own homes if we look at our cats, do you think?
It could be, but the changes in the use is very fast. So to detect this, we analyze video frame by frame to be sure to count the amount of time they spent to investigate the swab, the odor with one nostril or the other. So we can, but it won't be that easy.
Right.
I want to say, but we could use other signals, still lateralized behaviors that are more easy to detect, which is related to the preference of use one eye. So it means that cat, for instance, him or herself in a position having us or another individual on one side. So we know that in that particular moment, they are using one ear or one eye to process, to elaborate. And so we can derive some information from this.
That makes sense. Yeah. Probably people don't want to set up cameras and do a frame by frame analysis and code everything that their cats are doing.
Yes, yes. But still, if we say that owners will start to record videos to understand their cat, maybe they can also try to have a look on this.
Sure. I mean, why not? And just assemble a team of coders too and just really get into it. Just start. I would love it because I'm such a data nerd if I could get all my clients to do this kind of thing and, but no one's going to do that. So anyways, so if we can't see our cats, doing this type of nostril use easily, what does this research though tell us about how quickly cats are assessing their environment and how sensitive they are to emotional cues? Like what can we as cat owners take away from this research?
We can detect how they feel in that moment and how actually they think about the olfactory stimulus, the odor that they are investigating. So, for instance, that if there is something that is worrying them, they may use more the right nostril. Or if there is an odor that really attracts them, they can start to use the left nostril if it is positive, for instance. And so I think that this kind of information can be derived from this observation.
All right. I think this was so interesting. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Or do you have any upcoming studies that you can tell us about that involve cats or other animals, or what's next for you?
So we are now trying to have a deeper look on the communication between subjects. So also to have a deeper understanding on the communicative signals between cats and other cats or dogs and other dogs. Still having a particular look on lateralized behavior as they are in our heart, if I can say.
All right. Well, I'm excited to read any of your new work as it comes out and see what new things that we can learn about cats. So thank you again so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks to you. I really enjoy it. Thank you very much for your invitation again.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to the show. If you're looking for one-on-one support with behavior issues like litter box problems, aggression, anxiety, or multi-cat dynamics, you can find me through my behavior consulting business, Catitude Adjustment, at catitude-adjustment.com. If you like the episode, please consider leaving a rating or review. It really helps us grow. For more episodes, show notes, and resources, head to hissandtellpodcast.com. Huge thanks to Cat Beats for the music, and I'll see you next time.